Okay,
we
now
go.
we're recording. So we missed the original event substance policy, and my thank you of all of our sponsors, but we're good to go.
Okay. Well, I'll just speak to that. Those of you watching the recorded version of this, we missed the introduction and we missed the reading of the event substance policy. I trust that you'll read that, and sorry that you missed the introduction. For our sponsors, we did a nice job of thanking you in that introduction, and we will continue to do so. We'll get that on a recorded version to get out to everybody as well. Go ahead, Paul. Okay, everybody, we've got a lot of slides to go through. For those that have watched this in previous years, there is some repeat, there is some new. There's a lot to cover. We will make an attempt to do this quickly and keep it a little bit fun. But I encourage you to pay attention as we go through all this stuff. Traveling to the Bahamas, we don't have an official send-off as we have in some years past. We are currently gathering details on all the boats, all the captains, and we will publish where everybody's leaving from, what time they're trying to leave, and so that everybody can grab a boat that's going over. If those of you that got all the lodging details and the team details, there's already some subgroups that are communicating together and coordinating those efforts as far as how they're going to get over to the Bahamas. There are a lot of people traveling from out of state, across, from long distances, and some of them have already made some arrangements for getting across. But and that's always a challenge every year. There are obviously tens of boats going across from every port at different times. We will publish as we know when captains are leaving, and which boats can handle more equipment, which boats can handle just people, and we will continue to publish that as that comes into play. We'll share this. You'll hear me say this multiple times throughout this. All this is going to be shared through email. Please make sure that you're getting the emails from Piper's Angels, from myself, from Paul, and the rest of the team. Point of emphasis here is years past we had sweep boats out there. This year we do not have sweep boats. There are multiple boats coming from each port. We would hope that those boats are getting together in their safety in numbers. And we don't have an official sweep boat that'll be out there. Big bold print. Every time I go on the water, I let somebody know where I'm going and what time I'm leaving. We encourage everybody to do so. Captains, you will hear multiple times throughout this presentation. We're not going to bog the entire group down with captain details. But captains, we will talk at length about some other things, as far as flow plans and details with captains. Paul, we have a couple captains meetings. What are those captains meetings? What are they?
Oh, they would be mandatory.
Those are mandatory meetings, captains, when those come about. There are two over in Bimini that are mandatory meetings, and there will be an online gathering of captains prior to the event that we encourage everybody to be a part of. Paul, can you go ahead and go forward?
Yeah, I'm going to take this slide, guys. You've probably gotten sick.
Bear with me. I'm sorry. On the traveling to the Bahamas, forgive us, folks. You get the three dummies that are part of this group to put this whole thing on, and we didn't practice it. On Wednesday, on your travel to the Bahamas, we're going to ask everybody to try to get to Bimini on Wednesday or Thursday between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. The reason for that is we have made arrangements with Customs and Immigration to check everybody in at Bimini Cove during those times. They will have staff from both Customs and Immigration in the same location at Bimini Cove. Those of you that have seen Bimini Cove know that there's an ability to stage several boats over there and wait your turn and do all of that. But if you get there on Wednesday and Thursday, go to Bimini Cove to check in. We've got specific staff from Customs and Immigration. They've graciously given us staff to check everybody in. They'll know that we're coming for the event. That process will be much smoother than if you go to Big Game on those 2 days. If you do not arrive between 10 and 4 p.m., you will have to go to Big Game and check in, through that process. And hopefully they'll still be open if you get there, later in the evening. Please represent this event well. Last year, there was a guy running up and down the docks from the Bahamas telling everybody to fly their quarantine flags, to keep everybody on the boats and to do all of that. We'll talk a little bit more about this further on in the presentation, but only the captain leaves the boat until everything's checked in, takes everybody's information in. If you've done the click to clear, which we'll talk about here, further on into the presentation, that process should go very smooth. But stay on your boats, fly those flags, that's the quarantine flag, and check in at Bimini Cove between 10 and 4 on Wednesday and Thursday.
I will just add, guys, with the United States Coast Guard app, you can file a float plan. Once again, the United States Coast Guard app, you can file a float plan from going from Florida over to Bimini. Paul?
Thanks, guys. All right, real quick, I'm going to jump in and cover this one just because I've had a lot of conversations recently with the Bahamas and specifically with the Bahamas tourism regarding the Bahamas COVID requirements. I really apologize for all the emails yesterday, but there's really not much we can do about it. I really wanted to make sure that you guys were kept up to date with the most current information. And here it is. Super simple. If you are vaccinated, you do not need any type of test prior to coming to the Bahamas. The questions that I was getting were, do I have to be boosted? How many boosters do I have to have? There is currently no listed requirement regarding boosters. The only requirement regarding vaccination is that you have to have received your second shot prior to 2 weeks of your arrival. So if you're trying to rush out now and get vaccinated so that you don't have to take a test, that's not going to work. You have to have had the second shot prior to 2 weeks of your arrival. So if you are vaccinated, provide proof of vaccination to customs upon arrival, either original card or printed legible copy. Guys, I got questions like, will a photo work? I'm not going to try that. I'm going to come in with a printed copy of my documents because I don't want to be holding my phone in front of a customs guy and run the risk of them saying, no, I'm sorry, this doesn't work. And you're not allowed to go to an office to print a copy out. Take the time now, print a copy of your vaccination report out, fold it in half, shove it in your passport. So when you give it to your captain, he has everything that he needs to walk up, hand him a stack of stuff, and they take care of it. Keep it simple. Vaccinated, just show proof of vaccination to customs. If you are unvaccinated, you have to obtain a negative COVID test within 72 hours of your arrival. And what I did is I threw it over to the right. If you're arriving Sunday, you're taking your test today. If you're arriving Monday, you're taking your test tomorrow. And gauge that based upon your time of arrival if you can. I can't tell you that they may not, split hairs over a couple hours. So just be safe. Good example, Scott actually has a test scheduled, I believe, for today, and then has a rapid test scheduled for Sunday, just in case he doesn't get the results back in time, because the PCRs can take up to 2 to 3 days. So just be careful. The types of tests for unvaccinated that are acceptable, RT-PCR, and any of the rapid versions of the PCR, NAA, NAAT, which is the most common, TMA or RNA. You have to provide proof of a negative COVID test to customs upon arrival. A rapid antigen is not acceptable. If you are unvaccinated, a rapid antigen test is not acceptable. It must be an RT-PCR or a rapid PCR test. What we found, Walgreens, rapid antigen, no cost within 2 hours. Actually, it's not even applicable anymore because that was written when we required testing for vaccinated. PCR, usually no cost, 2 days. A rapid PCR, there is a cost, and generally it takes about 2 hours. There is a place here in Jupiter if you are local or if you're coming into town in time. COVID rapid labs, they'll do a test for $75, your results in 30 minutes, and I've got the phone number listed down there. When we are done, we will post the presentation so that people have the ability to access it and get that number. Or grab your phones right now, screenshot this particular slide so that you have it available. Okay, that's all I've got, Scott.
Well, the only thing I would add to this slide and to what you just said is When we were over a few weeks ago meeting with Customs and Immigration, they made a very clear point to us that they are not, they don't have any authority in this regard. The test results and their ability to let everybody into the country comes from an entirely different department. They do not, Customs and Immigration have no alternative other than to look at a negative test. They can't, they're not judge and jury. They have no room for a gray area. So folks, please make sure you do what you're doing. And Paul, your example for me was spot on. I've got a test scheduled for tomorrow for PCR. I've got a rapid test scheduled for Sunday, just to make sure that there's no, that we don't miss.
And in that regard, guys, Piper's Angels Foundation and the Crossing also has no authority in this. If you get there and you don't have the ability to get in because you didn't do the test, misunderstood, don't have proof of vaccination, there is nothing that we can do. You could potentially reach somebody that will email you and you email our office and we can print something out. But beyond that, there is nothing that we are going to be able to do. Please take this part seriously and plan ahead.
Absolutely. The Customs Immigration really like this organization. They really like the event, and they really like some of the leadership within the event. What do we call Ayana, the Bahama Mama? They recognize her. They know her. They all liked her. They wanted to take pictures with her when we were over there talking about it. But they were very clear on they have no gray area in this regard. Paul, moving on to the click to clear. Captains, you'll get a lot more detail in emails and some of our meetings prior to going over to Bimini. But for everybody, for all participants, the captains will have the click to clear is a mandatory way for you to enter the country. So there are 2 tutorials on YouTube. You see those links there. All you do is if you just search it on YouTube, you can see the inbound and outbound tutorials. There's several on there, but the ones that we've shown are they're boring, but they're simple and they're very detailed. Click to clear is the way that they want you to come into the country and come out of the country. With that, everybody that's on a vessel, on a boat coming across, the captain will need your full name, your date of birth, your passport and passport number. They'll need to know the date of issue, the date of expiration, your country of residence, the country that you reside in, your current address, and your phone number. All of this is on that program. You don't need to take notes on that right now. The reason that I say that is they're going to need all of that information beforehand. You certainly want to have all of that information to them before you even leave the United States and get on a boat. What we're asking captains to do is to check on that. And several of the captains that I've talked to said, I don't want to be the guy checking, just make sure everybody's stuff is accurate and right. But what we're asking the captains to do is make sure before they get on a boat, make sure that you've gone through this click to clear, make sure that they're past, you've got the information that you're going to need when you get to the other side. We've always gotten through it, but every year we've had 4 or 5 people that get to the other side and realize they don't have their passport or they don't have something else. It just happens in a group this large. We need to try to avoid that as much as we possibly can this year. So on the click to clear, what I'm going to ask everybody, all the captains to do is go through these tutorials. For those that aren't captains and participants, if you watch it, it's 3 minutes long. You'll know what the captains are required to do and how they have to register. It will take you probably 30 minutes to go through the process, captains, with all of your with your crew and everybody that's on your boat, to log it all in and to do all of that. As far as the outbound goes, when we were over and with captains, you'll get a lot more information on this. When we were over and met with Customs and Immigration, they are going to check us out as we check in because they like our event, because we've proven ourselves, and because we've been respectful to Customs and Immigration. They're gonna break their own rules and help our event out. They're doing that because we've been problem free. So we want to continue that reputation that we have with Customs and Immigration. Captains, you'll get a lot more detail on the outbound in the meetings that we have with you. But know that the outbound will be checking out as we check in. If you get to, if you're one caveat to that is if you're checking in at Bimini Cove on Wednesday and Thursday, during those hours.
I'll add this in too, and this is a little pro tip from some people that have gone through the click to clear. Make sure you pay close attention on registering your boat as well, and do not hit the back button once you're in this process, because it will ruin everything that you've done previously. Once again, do not hit the back button once you've started.
Paul, you can move forward. Kind of repeating stuff here. Upon arrival to Bimini, we're saying check in at Bimini Big Game or Bimini Cove. Again, if you can get there Wednesday and Thursday between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., I strongly encourage you to go to Bimini Cove. There's staff that will be ready and know that our event's coming. You will, again, you're clearing customs and immigrations first when you come in. Just to repeat, you're flying your yellow flag. Everybody stays on the boat. You could sit on the boat and have a good time, but please don't walk around and cause problems for the event or for customs or immigration. They're being courteous to having us be able to check in there. It is available at Big Game. There are a few big boats that will have a tough time getting into the cove, so you can still check in at Big Game. After you clear customs, you will, everybody, this does not have to happen. It doesn't have to go one to the other. You can catch your breath and enjoy a little bit of the fact that you made it over there and walk around the docks and shake hands with everybody else that's there. After you clear customs, you will check into at the Cove. You'll check into the front desk. If you're staying at the Cove, you'll get your rooms and do all of that. If you clear customs at the Cove and you're staying at Bimini Big Game, you will go over there. By that time, everybody will have a slip assignment and room assignments for the big game. Check in for the event for every participant in the event, captains, crew, paddlers, any volunteers, anybody that's over there that is registered with this event will check in at the Hemingway room at Bimini Big Game. There will be signage. It's not confusing for those that haven't been there. There's signage and we'll steer you into Bimini Big Game. Captains, again, we'll go through this in a little more detail. If you're not assigned a slip at Bimini Big Game, you're just gonna have to. There'll be somebody directing you to what slips to tie up at and whatnot when you're ever at Big Game to check everybody in through the event check-in process. I'll say this and you'll hear it over and over again. There's a concrete wall there that they're asking us to keep clear because that's where customs and immigration checks other people in that are not part of our event. So we need to keep that wall clear. In the past, we've had too many boats, and that's been a problem. So we talked specifically about that. Captains, you'll get direction on that as well. Paul, go ahead. Okay, I guess I jumped ahead on this. After clearing customs, you must check in with the Bimini Big Game at the Bimini Big Game, not the Cove. In past years, we've had 2 locations. This year, it's only at Big Game in the Hemingway room. Again, there'll be signage and everything directing you to those locations. When you check in, it'll actually walk through a little assembly line that's there for the check-in process. There will be several volunteers and staff members there. What we would ask is that you just do that in an orderly fashion and just follow through that process. Everybody will sign a hold harmless agreement. Captains, you'll get an information packet. It says Atlas Tracks. You won't be getting Atlas Tracks this year, but you'll be getting trackers and Garmin's and all of that. And we will go through that. Everybody gets their event shirts, their swag bags, and everybody gets an issued a wristband that you wear over there. There will be several other things that are taking place at that time. Just go through that process, take your time, follow the direction and the lead of the staff and the volunteers that are checking everybody in. And you'll kind of go through a little circle there at the Hemingway room. And then you can go right back out and hang out by the pool and get yourself a soda pop up there at the bar. Everybody's going to check in there after you've cleared customs, not before you've cleared customs. Go ahead, Paul. So here's a little, the next two slides are a little bit about the itinerary and what's going on Thursday. Those that have been there on Wednesday, there's 6:30 a.m. yoga, which you'll see Travis at, you'll see Paul at, you'll see Tony at, but you will not see me at. Again, there's check-in for the event, Bimini Big Game, and then 6:30 on Thursday night, there is a poolside social and then a beach bonfire. The poolside social, Bimini Cove is making improvements. They now have a poolside tiki bar area and some things that we're going to utilize, for the socials, and then there's a bonfire at the beach, which those that have done it in the past have participated in. Go ahead, Paul. Friday, again, yoga on the beach, and check-in, Bimini Big Game. Every participant has to be checked in to the event by 12 p.m. on Friday for a variety of reasons. One, we got to make sure that you're there. We got to make sure that everybody's safe and everybody's where they need to be. But the other point, and you've heard this in past presentations, we know from years past that we need everybody over there and settled and relaxed and stress-free at least 24 hours prior to when they're gonna try to make this trek across the ocean. From 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., 4Ocean does a beach cleanup on Radio Beach. That is not only a good event, but it's a nice social time as well. Those of you that have signed up for dinners, there's the first dinner shift is at 5:30 p.m. That is at Bimini Big Game on Friday. You could see there that we're going to have two great guest speakers. Piper's going to speak this year, and Melissa's going to speak this year at that first seating. And then at 7:30, there's a second seating. Be courteous to the fact that there's two seatings. We're trying to push 200 people through a relatively small venue. So those of you that are at the 5:30, enjoy it, and but then make room for the 7:30 people to move in and do that. On Saturday, the 25th, again yoga on the beach, and the 8:30 and 9 o'clock rose ceremony. Captains, you will get a lot of direction on the rose ceremony as far as how we'll do the boats and all of that. I will share personally that the first rose ceremony that I attended was very moving for me, and very much part of the reason that I continue to come back to this event every year. I was really touched by what I saw and what I heard, and just the just a really special event. And I would hope that everybody can participate in it. Generally, the picture shows the paddle boarders there on the right, but what's outside of those paddle boarders are all the boats and set up. We will talk about how to do that with the boats and how that ceremony will go while we're over there in Bimini. The big event there Saturday night, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. is the launch check-in, and I'm not sure if we get into that further in further slides, but that's a 2-hour window. I would encourage everybody to come over as early as you can to do that check-in for two reasons. One, we're trying to check in 130 people at one time. But more importantly, if you check in at 9, we really encourage those that are staying at the Cove to go back to their room and rest and get ready for launching off that beach. Those that are coming over from Big Game, settle in, sit down and relax before that launch. The check-in process for the beach launch, there's a process, and I think we're going to go through that a little further, a little more detail when we get into a further slide. And we'll talk about the beach launch at midnight. as we move forward. Go ahead, Paul.
Just one quick note on that. As you guys, he mentioned the beach cleanup at Radio Beach. That is sponsored by one of our strategic partners, 4Ocean, and we picked up a ton of trash last year, and it was just a great event for the Bahamas that was put on by us in 4Ocean. So they're super appreciative of that.
All right, Bimini charts and GPS. Captains, we'll go through this in a lot more detail, but as you arrive from Bimini, if it's your first time coming across, it's relatively well marked with channel markers and whatnot. What you should familiarize yourself with if you're checking into these are good charts here, but obviously you're going to want to be able to zoom in as you check into Bimini Cove. The entrance there it's plenty deep and it's plenty wide for multiple boats to go through, but there's not a lot of room for air on either side of that channel as you go through. What we would ask every captain and participants to be cognizant of, as there's a lot of shuttling that goes back and forth from island to island during this event. Our boats are there'll be 10, 15 people on a boat shuttling back and forth. Captains, you don't have to go slow out there, but we're going to ask that you do, between the islands, and we'll talk about that a little further, as we move forward. But you'll see, for everybody's knowledge, you will see boats that are running through there pretty quick. First of all, anybody that's a Bahamian, they don't know what a no-wake sign is, and they will never get pulled over. If you're flying an American flag and you're running in that no-wake zone at full speed because you're following another boat that's doing it, you will get pulled over and hassled because you shouldn't be doing it. So be aware of that. That is a heavily traversed channel going into towards big game. There's big boats, little boats, and a lot of traffic. I would just encourage everybody to run that at a real slow speed, especially during the shuttling process where there's multiple people on your boat that aren't aware of how challenging it is to drive in that channel, captains. So participants, if you're on somebody's boat and there's 12 of you, please understand that while you're having a good time in the front of that boat, the captain's having a hard time seeing, and he wants to make sure that you're staying safe. So go ahead, Paul. Paul, go ahead.
Pass this one as well.
You on 14? I can't tell which one you're on. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong screen. So, yeah.
This is the one before that. This basically just shows the shoals. I'll knock it out, Scott, and then you jump back in.
Go ahead.
On this one, you just want to be really careful because, as you can see on North Bimini Island, the south end of North Bimini Island is not the turning point. You want to almost aim for the entryway to Bimini Cove, and then you will hit the one green marker at the end of that shoal, and that's when you're going to turn north to go into the channel. You do not want to try and cut that channel. I actually think, and Sean Dunleavy remembers this from last year, there is a nickname for that shoal, and it's some play on words with regards to your lower unit and leaving it there in the Bahamas. If you try to cut across that shoal and you do not catch the tide at exactly the right time, and your boat runs in skinny water, you're going to leave your lower unit there. So just a cautionary tale, make sure you come south, aim towards the entrance of Bimini Cove, then make the turn north to go up into the channel.
Correct, Paul. Thanks. I was on the wrong slide, so
no, it's all right. All good.
Okay, so final check-in. This is the beach launch, which I alluded to. It opens at 9 p.m. And we want everybody checked in by 11. There is a lot that goes on in the check-in process. You'll get numbers, you'll get equipment, there's safety gear that all the paddlers will get. The paddlers will get a GPS tracker. They won't get a timing chip this year, but they'll get a reflective vest. PFDs are your responsibility. Paddlers will get a whistle. and a glow stick, leash, and other, equipment that goes to the paddlers at that time. There is that's a time with a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, a lot of anticipation, and all of that's good. You will there'll be speeches, there'll be pictures, there'll be all kinds of stuff going on prior to that launch. That's all good and all positive. The only thing that I'm going to ask is that's a really busy and important time for the staff and the volunteers to get you off that beach safely. I just want everybody to be conscious of the efforts that we're making in that regard, and be and listen to the direction and follow the direction and stay focused to the directions that you're given at that time. What's happening while all the paddlers, 130 of you are there checking in and doing all that. All your boats are out there bobbing in the waves, waiting for you to come out to them for an hour or more. And so Tony and the safety team are trying to keep them coordinated and in line. We just need everybody to be very focused at the time. I don't want to take away from the excitement. I don't want to take away from taking pictures and enjoying that process and looking forward to that launch off the beach. But we really, really need you. If you're hearing Paul or myself or somebody else lining you up or on that megaphone or microphone, listen to what's being said there. We're gonna try to do two things. We're gonna try to give you all the directions you need, but the other end of that is we're gonna be playing music and having a good time and doing all that. So it's a little bit of a give and take on that. That's a busy time for the staff and for everybody there. Enjoy it, but please be conscious of the directions that we're given. So that check-in process will have multiple areas. There's a preparation area. There's an on-deck area. There's a launch zone. You will be launching obviously at midnight, and then we'll go through waves from midnight on. We are launching at absolute dead low tide this year. So what we're going to do, that beach, you'll see the beach hopefully multiple times before the launch. Familiarize yourself with it. But we're going to put as you launch, like we did last year, you'll get in the water to about 2 feet deep and then launch from that point. It's a very rocky beach at low tide. We do have a section that's all sand that you'll be able, so you won't damage boards and you'll be able to walk out. But it's a very narrow area, and we'll have people at either side of those rocks. So you'll walk out into the water and launch from that area. Unlike some years, we've kind of done it two ways in previous years. Do recognize that there's a competitive nature to the event. Relay teams will this year, if you choose, you can have your entire relay team can be on the beach so that you don't miss out on anything that's going on in the launch, and you could participate in all that. And then you can take off the beach as a full team. And as soon as you're a safe distance away from the beach, get the rest of the relay team on the boat, and then start your paddle as a true relay team from that point on. We'll give captains a little more direction in regards to that. But in years past, 3 members of the relay team were sitting out on a boat and missed out on all the launch, activities and Travis talking and some of the things that go on there. So this year we're going to open it up so that the relay teams can launch. Certainly the recreational relay teams can launch that way. And we're going to say, just get a safe distance away from that launch area, and get everybody back on the boat. We'll go, during that whole process, you'll see where these prep areas are, where the on-deck areas are, where the launch areas are. Captains, I think does the next slide talk to that, Paul? No, I'm sorry. It doesn't. It doesn't. It does as we move further down. So captains, you'll get a little more detail on where those staging areas are and that for the.
Yeah, that's a later slide. It's not the next one, Scott.
Understood. The only other thing that's on this one is we will make announcements on channel 72 and 73. 73 will be the channel that you monitor from the beach. 72 will be the one you monitor once you're out on the water. Hopefully we don't have weather delays and different deals, but that's what we will be talking through channel 73 on that. The restrooms and the pool area will be open for those that are around in that area, but will be well lit. There'll be speakers and different things there so that you understand.
Just one more thing to that slide, Scott. I just want to remind everybody, you guys are going to be giving, all the captains are going to be given a FedEx bag. The things that you're going to be given at that check-in, one's a Garmin tracker, one's a bleed kit for medical reasons, one's a paddler vest, one's paddler whistle, and a paper packet. That FedEx bag that you're going to be given, all those things need to go in it to be returned to the event after it's over. Also, at that beach launch, boaters, captains, be cognizant of your lights and any rear lights that you may have coming off your T-top or the rear of your boat as night vision is affected.
We got a nighttime slide coming up.
All right.
So, where are you at, Paul? Did you move forward?
Yeah, I was waiting for you guys to finish. Hey, I do want to add one thing real quickly to this slide. As Scott mentioned a little while ago, if we are launching at the dead of low tide, please be careful because this is the same beach that we're doing the paddle out ceremony on as well. And we want to be extremely careful with that because last year we did have a couple paddlers on the paddle out that they came to the beach and they left their fin on the shoreline because they hit the rocks. We just want to be careful of that, guys. Get off your board carefully, walk your board in. The rocks there, they're not going to move. They're going to take a piece of your board with you. Just be very careful as you're coming in and out of the beach area by Bimini Cove. That's all.
All right, required safety equipment. For the paddlers, at all times, you are wearing your life jacket, you're wearing your leash, you're wearing your GF or your GPS tracker, your Garmin tracker. That's at all times. There's never a reason to be out there without any one of those things. We will not have the Atlas trackers this year, so that doesn't apply. Nighttime, you must have that reflective vest on. You must have your glow stick. You must have your whistle. I would apply that whistle should be on the top line as well, Paul. You have that safety equipment on you. Paddlers, what I can tell you as somebody that has been a support boat for paddlers in the past, you're wearing that reflective vest. You're wearing that glow stick. We can see you at night from that boat better than we can see you in the daytime if you fall in the water. So if you have those things on, it makes the captain and the crews, your safety is much better. So those are not optional items. You'll be given those items, and those are not option. That's a required at all time. That'll be issued at that beach launch. Boats, I'm going to run through this relatively quickly. However, captains, we're going to go through in detail a lot more. At the bare minimum, boats are going to have the Coast Guard requirements of a throwable device, a fire extinguisher, your sound equipment, your visual signals, and a working VHF. We have a safety team of boats, and I'll take an opportunity to let you know everybody that's involved in this. There are 7 safety boats assigned to this event, with captains given that have given their time and efforts moving into this, and they will be out there for your safety. Every safety boat will have a medic. One safety boat will have the doctor that is supporting the event. And this year we have something unique. We have a communication boat that for 40 years was commissioned by the U.S. Coast Guard to relay communications in areas where communications were hard. So that boat will be out there and we'll be able to communicate. There's a tremendous safety team that has been meeting on a regular basis, but I do want to cite on the captain's side, Tony Berzali has spent a great deal of time putting together safety equipment suggestions, literature on the Coast Guard. There's Tony waving at you there. He's in the middle of my screen still, but he's going to speak to captains directly when we get together, and in some emails that go out to captains on some of the not only the required safety equipment, but the recommended safety equipment as well. For example, that throwable device, we're going to ask that you go find yourself a hard device and you get a floating line that goes with that device, as opposed to just the minimum Coast Guard requirement. That's that cheap square cushion that you can buy at West Marine. So we'll get into that detail with the captains a little more on that. You'll hear from Josh, who's head of safety. You'll hear from Tony, who's been instrumental in those activities moving up to this. Go ahead, Paul. So that's the suggested safety equipment. You can read through that. Captains, you'll get this again, in a lot more detail. But there's suggested safety equipment as well. Paul, go ahead. All right. Again, I stated this a little earlier. Captains, we're going to be utilizing channel 72 and 73. This is a nighttime launch. What I would hope, and again, captains, we will detail this out in captains meetings, but we're saying this to everybody so everybody understands the what's going on, with all of this. You can certainly read that screen that you see in front of you. At this night before the launch, it's absolutely going to be a no wake zone. For everybody that's in the event, there's going to be a lot of boats moving around out there. Captains, you'll get some instruction on this. Tony Brazzali will be on the water, kind of directing all traffic. There will be 5 other safety boats at that point, out there on the water, kind of steering you into where those staging areas are, where those dropping areas are. And we'll get into that in the next slide a little bit more, and how to set up. We're gonna ask that you go familiarize yourself with that area, familiarize yourself with those, where that is for the boats. On those channels 72 and 73, there's going to be a lot of direction and instructions being given on those 2 channels. Keep that chatter to a minimal, on those 2 channels at that time, because we're directing boats and we're directing everybody on the beach there. If Paul, if you move, we could talk about those staging areas. And the next slide there. So here's the staging areas. The 3 areas outside of Bimini Cove. There's that big square sea area will be where all the boats are staging after they have dropped everybody off. Those that are, everybody that's staying in the cove, they'll probably walk their boards over and walk over to the launch area from their units, and then the boats can go out and stage in that primary staging area. The on deck area will be where you move into when you're next up for the launch. That area A, we're saying receiving area on this slide, because if you're coming over from Bimini from Big Game with your paddlers prior to the launch, this is where you'll drop them off. You can't pull up on the beach. You'll have to pull up short of the beach. Everybody will get on a board and kind of paddle in to get into that launch area, and then you'll move on. You'll move back over to that staging area in C. A will be where we launch from, and once everybody's on the beach and everybody's waiting in the staging area, we'll start moving boats into the on deck and into the launch area, which will be A. We'll get into it further as we go down the slides here. Well, go ahead, Paul. Go to sequence, and I'll talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions on this. It looks really confusing, but there's going to be a lot of direction from all the directors during this time. So you're going to have no problem finding your boat.
On the last slide, I think we should probably talk about what happens at A. I don't know if we're going to do that in a later slide where we get them to circle up and then advance forward, or are you going to do that here?
Well, we can touch on it right now. I mean, because next one starts sequence, but as I was saying, there's going to be a lot of direction from the directors here, people on the water, people on the beach, and people actually up from a higher vantage point looking at the beach. I see a couple questions in the box there. We are going to line your boats up with each respective paddler and who they're supposed to be with. We're going to tell you exactly where your boat's at, exactly where to go. We're going to tell your boat exactly where you're at. and exactly where you're going to be coming from. So although looking at it, it looks extremely confusing, it runs really well as long as you're in the right position when we tell you to be there. You will have no problem finding your boat whatsoever from that beach, and that's going to be in that section A.
Yeah, the two critical timing is if everybody's listening on the beach and they get to where they need to be in position from the beach side, and the boats will go through that on deck area into that launch area. And again, Tony will be out there directing traffic, and other safety boats will be out there steering you in those proper areas. So go ahead, Paul.
Oh, sorry, it didn't click. There you go.
The start sequence, what you're seeing in front of you here is strictly for an example for the slide. This is not exactly how the start sequence will go. In fact, there are more waves than A through E every year. Every captain will get a detailed sequence for the launch at the meetings that are over in Bimini for the captains. Paul, what are those meetings again? I'm losing track.
Well, I'm pretty sure they're mandatory.
There's our mandatory meetings. That's correct. Paddlers, you'll be assigned that start sequence when you register for the launch, and probably before then. But what we've done with the launch, just so that everybody understands, we've taken consideration not only to the categories, to the number of paddlers in each of those categories, trying to keep the categories together so that if you're a competitive solo male paddler, you'll launch with other competitive solo male paddlers. But there's additional consideration that's taken place here. We've thought through the size of the boats and how to stage those boats. We have, for example, this year we have a 57-foot catamaran. We have two 70-foot boats. We have a 49-foot boat. Those boats are not easy to maneuver in these areas. So we've intentionally positioned them in different waves so that they're not all trying to launch at the same time. So there's consideration beyond just the categories and beyond just numbers of people in those categories in the launch sequence. And captains, you'll get that prior to the event. You'll get that at that meeting that's over there. Go ahead, Paul. There is a competitive nature to this event. I tend to forget that all the time in my activities, but there is a competitive nature to this event. You will hear everybody talk about our tagline for this is the spirit of the event. Hopefully this is very much self-regulated, and people are adhering to the spirit of the event. And I apologize to everybody. Paul, you're at the second one there on your screen. Are you? Can you go back up to the first one there? There you go. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought you had said to advance. My fault.
No. Well, I want to get past this slide as quickly as we can because that picture is disturbing for everybody. So we'll talk through this real quickly. The competitive rules, the time penalties and the disqualification, and cutting off 15 minutes on the time penalties, and then there's disqualification. You could go through and read those a little bit. And I don't know if the next slide talks to the one I want to talk to in more in detail. Okay, so the question that comes up every year is surfing and what's allowed. So for the competitive paddlers, you can paddle behind the boat. You can paddle alongside of the boat, but if at any time you're not required to paddle to move forward because you're surfing that boat's wake. You can't do that, and that's an immediate DQ if you're seen doing that. But you can't do that if you don't have to put forth effort to move that board forward. Then you're doing something wrong. What most of the competitive paddlers will do is they'll be right behind the boat, and that's not a consideration. You can be directly behind the boat. You can be as close behind the boat as you'd like to be, but you can't be on the side of the boat in the wake. You can be outside of the boat if that wake is not helping you move forward. If it's not propelling you forward, then that's an acceptable area to paddle in. So you can go through those, Paul. You can click to the next one.
Yep.
Trying to click along.
Through.
There are several considerations for competitive paddlers to get out of the water. I'm saying competitive paddlers, recreational paddlers, go out there, have fun, participate in the event. You and your captain and the other folks on the boat. You guys decide when you want to take breaks, when you want to get do whatever you want to do. You're in a recreational division for a reason. Competitive paddlers, there are several considerations for reasons that you can get out of the water. The most paramount thing about this entire event, the reason that we're all talking here tonight, is safety, safety, safety. And then I think the fourth thing is safety as well. So we'll go through not only the reasons that you can get out of the water, but the procedures to get out of the water. I think everybody's probably read this slide that's in front of us, and we can talk through an example of that in the next slide with that form. Okay, so here's two examples of a competitive paddler getting out of the water, and there's a key difference to the two examples. In example number one, Captain Paul Smolchek and paddler Travis Suit, they had a weather condition at 6:05 a.m. So Travis had to get out of the water. They cleared themselves of that weather condition. They moved locations, and Travis got back in the water at 6:20 a.m. What the captain did is he recorded his position on when they got out of the water, and then he recorded the position again when they got back in the water. We don't need to go into detail here, but there is a system in place for how we will track what that distance was, what that time should be, and how that will affect your overall time in the competitive division. And likely, if you've gotten out of the water because of a weather condition, so has somebody else. So we will be able to look at all that. One of the things I would suggest is you can mark all this down in this form. But captains, go ahead and hit your man overboard in both locations so that you can refer back to it and fill this form out when you're in a drier condition, or whatever the case is. The other thing that you'll have this year is you'll have the ability to communicate at all times with Josh on land. Every captain will have a GPS or a Garmin InReach. They'll be able to communicate. So when you've moved and everybody's safe, you can send a message to Josh. Hey, we did this. There was a thunderstorm. There was a condition that we moved on, and here's what's going on. Josh may have already sent you a message that talks about weather conditions and have moved the entire fleet of boats, to a safe location. In example number two, it is a medical reason, and there are multiple reasons that you might have to get out of the water for medical condition. Again, safety is the number one deal. Your paddler has cramped up and can no longer move and needs to take refuge on the boat. You will note that location. You will note that time. Your reasoning is medical, and then when you'll note that you got back in the water and the location that you got back in the water with. What you'll notice on that second one, captains, and we'll talk about this again at that mandatory meeting, is you're now you're back in the same location. You bring your boat back to where you got out of the water, and you go back in the water at that same location for a medical reason. So again, take all the time you need to treat that medical condition, but you go back in and you go back in the water at the same location. So if you're adrift for 30 minutes while you deal with cramps and do all that, that's fine, but you've got to go back to that same location and start over again. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, real quick, Scott, got a couple questions. The idea of this is to make sure that you are not advancing forward optionally and then taking advantage of being able to move forward and saying, well, I advanced because of a storm. So the idea here is to make sure if you are advancing forward, we're going to look at what your average speed was. And there's going to be a time adder in there if you are not putting back in the same place. If you come out of the water for a medical reason and then you are dropping back in at the same exact spot, there is not going to be any type of adder, because obviously if you pulled out and went back in at the same spot, even if you do that for weather reasons as well, we're not going to penalize you for that. We want it to be fair, and we want to make sure that people aren't advancing forward using the idea of a storm or relocating due to a freighter to get some type of competitive advantage. That's all.
May I add something real quick to that too?
Of course, Travis Soot, our executive director and the founder of Piper's Angels Foundation, and the first person to be crazy enough to paddleboard across the ocean.
Thanks, Paul. We get this question a lot, and I just want to, nip it in the bud. It doesn't matter if you get in the boat for lightning, for medical, for any reason. If you want to know if you qualify for, the Iron Crusader designation, which is beach to beach nonstop without getting in the boat. I've had to get in the boat for many reasons over the years. I don't consider those years going beach to beach iron. If you get in the boat for any reason, it doesn't matter what it is, that's not going beach to beach iron. So just make sure you accept that and understand that now. You could be a mile off the pier, and if you overshoot the pier and you got to get in the boat and go south to get back in the water to paddle into the beach, that does not qualify or count as that Iron Crusader designation. There is a specific challenge coin for that. So just putting it out there so everybody knows in advance what the deal is, and understands it from the get-go.
Okay, thanks, Travis.
Yep.
I skip over some of those key points sometimes. All you're seeing here on the screen now is that full form, competitive paddlers. Even if you do not have an event that requires you to come out of the boat and fill this form out, at the end of when you hit the beach, the captain is required to turn this in and attest to your paddle and your times. So what you would put on this form is no events. Captain would sign that and turn that in on your behalf. If there are events, obviously those will be on there, and then we'll take the time to go through the process to figure out what those time adjustments should be. Go ahead, Paul. Nighttime launch. This is just a picture that's representative of what that nighttime launch looks like. You can see the boats in the staging area on the top of the picture there. A large number of paddlers on the beach. You could see, some of those areas are lit up and not lit up. That's just to give you a little familiarity of what that nighttime launch looks like. Go ahead, Paul. Nighttime operations, buddy system. If you're paddling solo, in captains and crew, make sure that you can see that paddler at all times. Paddlers, make sure you're in a position where you can be seen at all times. Again, I will tell you, if you're wearing that vest and you're wearing that glow stick, you're gonna stand out pretty good for that boat, as long as you're in close proximity. There's no reason not to be in close proximity. If you're a recreational team or there's multiple paddlers behind the boat, stick with the buddy system. If what that means is if a paddler out there, drops off or slows down or falls off the board for any reason, then you stop and you wait for that boat to get back around and to sit with the, where everybody's at. We do want paddlers and captains to have a communication system that they've talked about and practiced. How are they going to, talk to the boat, and what, whether it's a signal, whether it's yelling out man down, whether it, all the, any way to communicate with that boat. Captains and paddlers, you should practice that before the event takes place. one of the things that that happens is the first time that we don't want the first time you be behind the boat with your captain to be at 1 o'clock in the morning. We'd prefer that you take some time and familiarize yourself while you're over there the couple days prior to the event. At nighttime, there is no music at night, no exceptions. Headphones, absolutely not, because now you can't hear what's going on with your paddlers or other people on the boat. Nighttime, again, you can see that paddler, very well, but the paddlers generally a little more uneasy than they are during the day. Captains and crew, just stay focused and stay with those paddlers. Whistle use, everybody's getting a whistle. Tony Brzali helped us with those whistles. There's the signals for a whistle is 3 short bursts means I'm in trouble. So I would extend that to, if you just repeatedly blow that whistle in short bursts, that means you got a problem and you're in trouble. If there's other boats in the area, they'll hear you. If your boat should be able to hear you. Not an emergency, it's just a long blast. Everybody can read the screen down there on the psychological effects of paddling at night. I will oversimplify that, read all that, that's all important. I will oversimplify it and say that most paddlers prefer that boat to be as dark as it possibly can be, so that they're not getting disoriented by, so don't put your spreader lights out like your fishing captains. Get that boat where you and the paddler are comfortable with what you can see behind your boat and what your paddler can see on your boat. And more importantly at night is how the paddler is their comfort zone behind that boat, and they're not disoriented by the lights and all that. That is real. We've experienced that through the years, and there's some history to that. So I'm going to tell you, turn as many lights off as you can, and make sure that you can see the paddler and the paddler can see you. So go ahead, Paul.
He's down.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not moving at the same pace as you, Paul. I apologize. At night, well, actually during the entire event, here's the one guarantee that I will tell you: there will be freighter traffic. There will be other commercial traffic out there. In fact, if you're listening to the radio during the event, these freighter boat captains and or crew, they don't know we're coming. We have no way of letting them know this event's taking place. The United States Coast Guard, the United States Homeland Security and Customs and all of that, they know that we're out there. The Bahamas Coast Guard, Bahamas Customs Immigration, they know that we're out there. There's no way to let a freighter know that we're going to be out there. I can guarantee you will see freighter traffic while you're out there. Captains, make sure that you're putting your paddlers and your boat in the safe position on those. If you have to slow down, if you have to deviate course, go behind those freighters. Those freighters are on an autopilot with somebody with their feet up on the bridge, not really paying attention. And they don't, not only they're not expecting you to be out there, but they can't stop that boat. So make sure that you're in a safe location on all of that. You'll hear chatter while we're out there with other boats, with the safety boats, as far as when we recognize if there's freighter traffic.
Tony will be making announcements as well.
So Josh is saying, Tony will be announcing to the fleet. So will Peter, who's on that boat. And if we recognize that there's a significant amount of traffic or something unique, Josh will be sending information through the Garmin's to all the captains as well. Just be cognizant of it. And most of those freighters I've found in the past do not speak English very well. So communicating with them is probably going to be a challenge. But what I've heard in the past is they're asking questions. They're like, what is going on out here? Because they see all these boats on their radar and they see all these blips of light in the water with the paddlers. So go ahead, Paul. Medical situations. Gosh.
All right, down to medical situations. Most things that you're going to run into medically are going to be avoidable out there through nutrition, through training, through preparation. Some examples: you're going to have heat stroke, heat exhaustion, dehydration, electrolyte loss, fluid loss. All these things can be combated prior to the event. Once again, with nutritional preparation and planning and things like that. One example that a very easy example: if you're prone to seasickness, if you're prone to seasickness, you want to make sure that you find something that works for you. One, Two, you want to make sure you get that in your body at least 8 hours before the event. Dramamine, Bonine are a few of the examples there. I know that it's not very common thought with four-stroke engines, which most people have, some do not, but carbon monoxide poisoning is still something to think about. If you're starting to feel, it's not very common, but if you feel lightheaded, think about maybe getting out from the immediate direction of those outboard motors or inboard motors, anything like that. Things to think about, medical preparations. One of the biggest things and important parts of this slide is, what do you do? What do you do if you need help? We have, as Scott said, we have 7 safety boats out there to help you, and that's exactly what we're there for. First thing you want to do is we're going to be operating on channel 72. You're going to notify your safety boats. You're going to notify the nearest boats around you. In the event that you can't get as far as one of our safety boats is, that nearest boat around you might be able to do so. You want to consider taking the person on your boat, treating it. We're going to get someone to you as fast as possible. If it's a dire emergency, you're going to get on 16. You're going to call the Coast Guard, and you're going to continue to call us and let us know, because we're going to reiterate that message to Coast Guard. I would say in the slide, it says if you're unable to connect with any nearby boats, but I'm going to say even if you do connect with nearby boats, please immediately message me using the Garmin InReach app. You're going to be given a Garmin InReach. Every captain that's on this, if you're a crew member or paddler that's watching this, please tell your captain to download the Garmin EarthMate app. And that's how they're going to text me. They're going to text me in real time. There's generally a 2 to 5 minute delay. But if you run into a situation and you can't find any of our safety boats on VHF, or for some weird reason you can't get a hold of anybody, you're going to message me directly. That's my cell phone number. You can call that now if you have questions. Well, after this is over or leading up to the event, that's my cell phone number. That's what you're going to text with the Garmin InReach app. 321-544-5735. You're going to let us know what's going on. You can send a full message, and I will in turn get someone over to you as fast as possible. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, so breaks and nutrition. Well, this one from a paddler's perspective is extremely important. We want to make sure that everybody on board the boat, and it's not just about the paddlers, guys. You have to remember your captain and your crew is out there as well. And for the same duration that the paddler is in the water, the captain and the crew are in the boat also. So you want to make sure that everyone on the boat is hydrating. Everyone on the boat is also considering their nutrition as well. The breaks will largely be determined by the paddler's discretion. We have some paddlers that have a hard and fast rule that every 60 to 90 minutes, they rest for 5. We have other paddlers that have gone as far as 2 and 3 hours, and then they will rest for a 5-minute break. That is going to be completely up to the paddlers that are behind your boat. So we encourage you, just communicate, have a good plan ahead of time, make sure that everybody's communicating, make sure that you are taking breaks. At a minimum, please ensure everyone on the boat is hydrating every hour, whether that's water, Gatorade, pickle juice, tailwind, whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that you are hydrating. Even if you are sitting on the boat and not paddling, your safety is also a concern of ours. So make sure you are drinking along the way. Nutrition is equally important. We look at and estimate that a paddler is going to lose between 5,000 and 8,000 calories during this actual crossing. If they are going beach to beach, they're going to burn 5,000 to 8,000 calories. We want to make sure that they are not only hydrating to prevent dehydration and any type of heat injury, but you want to make sure that you're getting in nutrition and calories somehow to sustain yourself along the ways. We've had people try to eat tons of protein, oatmeal, oat balls, whatever. Just make sure that whatever your paddlers and whatever the people on the boat are eating is something that's going to actually give them nutrition during the time of the crossing itself, and not something that takes 6 to 8 hours to actually process. And also, and this is a personal thing, I did these energy balls that had a large concentration of oatmeal a few years back, only to find out that they were great, got them in my stomach, the oatmeal swelled up, and I was miserable for the next hour and a half. So your paddlers by this point will have determined what they know works for them and helps sustain them during the paddle. So just make sure that you guys are supportive of one another. Paddlers need to be familiar with what they can eat and drink during the crossing. You should have been working that out as we've gone. So now's the time to kind of refine that and make sure your body's going to break down over a 12 to 16 hour period. Make sure that you are giving yourself calories. Tailwind is 100 calories per scoop. You mix it with your water. Doesn't work for everybody, but you want to make sure that you are practicing that ahead of time. You don't want to do this for the first time when you're in the middle of the crossing. Josh?
Equipment and mechanical failure. Basically, it's going to be the same thing as a medical event as far as procedurally. You have an equipment failure, a medical failure, or a mechanical failure, you're going to let everybody know around you. Notify a safety boat if you can. If you can't reach a safety boat, notify the nearest boat. They can notify a safety boat. Same exact thing. Go ahead and send me a message through your Garmin InReach and the EarthMate app. There's the picture of it again. Go ahead and download it. Captains, if your boat's experiencing mechanical failure, please immediately message me at 321-544-5735. If you can't get to someone that can come help you, I will immediately text someone to send them your way. Because as soon as you message me, you don't have to give me coordinates or anything. I'm going to have them. In reference to coordinates, I just do want to know if you're noting on your exit water sheet or anything like that, if you're giving anyone coordinates, just make sure they're laid out in degrees and decimal minutes. Anyone with a Garmin, they should already be set that way, but you won't need to do that with me because the Garmin's going to go ahead and give me everything I need to know.
Okay, weather procedures. We will, again, there's 7 safety boats out there with a command center on the water, with Josh within reaches, communicating with all the captains, and Tony running around in the middle trying to keep everybody straight. If you see a weather condition, you're going to notify the committee boats or the safety boats, and well, you'll just call it out on channel 72. You can see some of the steps to consider while you're out there. And just do what you feel as a captain is the right thing, and paddlers as well. You can tell your boat, I don't want to be in the water right now. Again, competitive, there's that procedure you go through. If you're a competitive paddler, recreational paddlers, get out of the way of all that stuff, stay safe. The point for this screen and for any conditions out there, if the race director, therefore, if a safety boat comes over to you and tells you to get out of the water, that is not up for debate at all. That means that we know something that you don't know. We have communication with again with land, with Josh being out there so that we know what's going on. We've got a communication boat on the water. We know something that you don't know. We know that you need to get out of the water. If a boat comes over to you, or if we do an all call on channel 72 that says everybody out of the water now, and whatever directions follow, that's not going to be up for debate. We had a situation last year where a paddler refused to listen to the captain of the boat, refused to listen to the safety boat, and it put 2 boats and crews in jeopardy because they were refusing to get out of the water. I understand the importance of going beach to beach. I understand the importance of some of the different designations and the competitive nature of the event, but we will not make that decision unless we feel that it is absolutely imperative for your safety to get out of the water. It's just not going to be something that we debate out there at any point in time. Captains, we're going to talk about that. You're responsible for your crew and your paddlers, but paddlers, you need to be respectful of that situation if it comes about, and hopefully it doesn't. Tony is guaranteeing that we have conditions like 2018 and 19 this year.
Right.
So go ahead, Paul. All right, we can move through this relatively quick. This is an actual picture from the crossing in 2017. The sea state was great. We did see some thunderstorms that rolled through, much like the summertime, conditions in Florida or anywhere, over there. They rolled through relatively quickly. They were very snotty when they came through. Again, most people got on a boat, waited it out, and then they went right back to really good conditions and finished the paddle, or they moved outside of the path of those storms. Captains, from being on the water, those storms can move very quickly. Some of you have equipment that lets you know where the storms are moving and how big they are. We will try to communicate that with you as best that we can. So go ahead, Paul. We won't go into a lot of detail here, but we just to talk about it. Paddlers, your success rate is going to be better if you're staying close to the stern of that boat. You're never to paddle. Nobody is to paddle forward of the helm of the boat at any point in time. And paddlers and captains, if you have multiple paddlers and they decide to go out and paddle on the side of the boat and get that experience of not drafting behind a boat and do all of that, that's okay. But they all have to be on the same side of the boat. We can't have paddlers on one side of the boat and paddlers on the other side of the boat, where crews and captains are trying to keep track of people in different areas. If we have those conditions that we had in 1819, some of those recreational boats had 10 paddlers behind them and enjoying themselves and out on the side of the boat, and it was great. But never get in front of that boat, and don't be on both sides of the boat. Really think through the challenges for that captain and for that crew to keep track of you in the water, at those times. If somebody goes missing, again, we'll talk a little more in detail about this in the captain's meetings. But obviously you hit your man overboard on your machine. What we'd like to, as best you can, calmly communicate with the crew on your boat, calmly communicate with any nearby boats on the radio that we have a man overboard situation, and be very conscious of the way that you're driving at that time with the boat. You may just drift for a minute to find out if that person's right there. Hopefully they are, because if they aren't, then you've made a mistake already as a captain of that boat. But that's not a time to be racing around and looking in panic mode and run somebody over. In a man overboard situation, all bets are off for all the nearby boats. We would like you to, obviously communicate, but don't necessarily race over to the other boat. Just find out where they are and where your position is and how we can help, because we're going to get there faster than maybe a safety boat that's in the area, certainly faster than the responding Coast Guard in that area. You can notify Josh on your inReach that you have that situation, and certainly can notify the Coast Guard if you feel like, and you should notify the Coast Guard if you feel like that situation is imminent. The set and drift and how all that works, we will review that with captains in detail at the captains meetings, and talk about how that process would take place and how other boats would help if that's the case. So go ahead, Paul. Gulfstream navigation. So you will see I believe in the next slide, but you'll see our recommended course for how you go and how to take place. What you're going to want to do is go west as much as possible, heading off the beach, because in order to, you could see in this, in order to achieve landing at Lake Worth, of which 320 degrees from where you're taking off, you really got to go 50 degrees, difference, because the Gulf Stream is going to push you further north. If you're reading through that, really want to resist that urge to take a straight line approach. Every year we've had multiple teams that end up north of that pier, and that is a miserable situation to try to paddle yourself back to that pier. One, you're fighting the Gulf Stream if you're out far enough, and two, you could be fighting that tide that's shifting across there. Nothing worse than being 1 mile from Lake Worth Pier to the north, and trying to get your way back. I would tell you, as if you're setting your coordinates and you're doing that, err in the side of being south, as opposed to going north. So you'll see that. Paul, if you go to the next one, it'll exemplify that a little better. So here's our recommended route. You can see that it's got a little bit of a banana curve to it. We've given you recommended coordinates. These are not just picked out of the blue. This is there's historical data over the years. We were able in the last couple of years to look at the exact tracks of every person that came across there, and almost even your fastest paddlers followed this southern route and then drifted further north. The only ones that kind of got away from it a little bit were some of the relay teams that were able to take a little more straight line approach because they're not as tired, from that paddle. Here's your suggested route. Recreational captains, you'll hear this in that meeting that is mandatory, but we're gonna ask you to follow this route so that we can keep an eye on you as you're going, so we know where you should be at all times with those safety boats that are out there with you. Go ahead, Paul.
This will be in our captain's packet, by the way, so you're going to get a copy of that.
Yeah, there's captain's packets will have several things to them. So, okay, United States side in the check-in, you can do the same thing as you do with Click to Clear. You can go on YouTube and watch videos on how this process works. But you're going to know who's going to be on your boat before you leave Bimini. My suggestion is you get on this app, you get everybody logged in, because what you're going to do in this app is you're going to scan in everybody's passports. You're going to input some information on everybody that's on your boat. A lot of captains already are familiar with this. They go back and forth a lot. If you're not, this is not a hard process. It just takes a little bit of time to get everybody in. When you're in range of cell range of the United States, you can at that point in time notify through the app that you're ready to check back in. What I did one year when I had paddlers behind a boat, we checked in, and they will call you. So when you check in, somebody from U.S. Customs is going to call you and FaceTime you and check you back in. Most of the time, they want to see everybody that's on the boat. And in one case, in previous years, I actually held up my iPad, and the paddler that was behind the boat was talking to the customs agent as we were coming into the beach. So very easy process. And typically, after several of us have checked in coming across, they already know that you're part of the paddler. You can mention that you're part of the paddler event, or they'll ask you, are you one of the other crazy people that are out there paddling across the ocean? And it goes relatively smooth if you follow the process and the procedure. Again, you can watch this on YouTube. You could talk to us that have done it before, when you're over in Bimini, but the process is easy. Again, represent this event, represent this group well. If the customs agent if you're being argumentative with customs agent, it's because you did something wrong, not because they're doing something wrong. I've checked in and out of the Bahamas this way, probably 50 times. It is a very smooth process. So go ahead, Paul. Okay, approaching the Lake Worth Pier. If you've done this, you understand what I'm about to say. If you have not done the event yet, you're going to see that you're going to see land, and you're going to see Florida, and you're going to be excited that you're there, and you still got a long ways to go. But once you're within about 10 miles of the Lake Worth Pier, captains, we're going to ask you to reach out, communicate with Josh on channel 72. We want you to try as often as it takes until you get a response from him, and he will then be able to give you, if there needs be, further direction as you come into the Lake Worth Pier on what to do, as you approach that area. So you're just gonna reach out to Josh on channel 72 until you get confirmation, and then he will direct you in at that point in time. Go ahead, Paul. So this picture, this here, just real quick, obviously the picture on the right is the Lake Worth Pier. I wish it was that easy to see from the boat. The picture on the left is from 3 miles out. You can see the buildings on the left that will be a landmark that you can look for from the water. You can note from 3 miles out, you really can't see the pier. when you're on the water. So familiarize yourself with what that's going to look like. Obviously, everybody's going to have GPS that you can follow and trust your machines on that. But that is what you're going to see coming into Lake Worth. So go ahead, Paul.
Hang on, sorry, I had to populate something. I don't have
All right,
slide
guys,
numbers. Am I grabbing it from here?
No, Josh has got.
Just let me know when you want to bring Jen in.
No, Josh, you go ahead. And Jen actually is our VIP guest tonight, and she is ready to rock. So go ahead, Josh, for right now, and then I'm going to introduce Jen.
All right, anyways, this is the Lake Worth Beach arrival. You're going to see landmarks that slide just before this. You saw the pier, you saw the matching buildings. It gets very confusing, people approaching this and they don't know where. They can't really see the pier. Is it the pier? Is it the right pier? We don't know. Put the coordinates in that we give you, and as long as you're confident in your GPS, it's going to take you right there. You can do some countermeasures to double check. You can check our VHF. Once you get close, you should be able to see it. The support boats and the paddlers, when they're 100 yards from the pier, they may separate and send the paddlers to shore. Support boats are not allowed in the approach zone. It's going to be marked by yellow pyramids. You're probably going to see Paul's boat. You'll see it in an upcoming slide here, which is going to be one of our safety boats, either roving around or anchored there. Do not approach that. Paddlers and sport boats shall remain a safe distance from the pier at all times. There'll be an arrival path for paddlers consisting of yellow pyramid buoys. If I can remember, I don't know the exact dimensions. Jen actually probably knows. I think those are about 5 to 6 foot big diamond yellow buoys. Your paddlers are going to paddle right through those. It's actually a requirement. Paddlers must be wearing their GPS trackers and timing chips, and they must go through those yellow pyramid buoys in order to qualify and finish the landing. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take over on this one. And then I do want to tell everybody we have a special VIP guest online tonight, Jen Napolitano, otherwise known as the Duchess, who runs our beach landing. She will be basically, when you arrive at the beach and you see the inflatable, everything that's going on at the beach, the inflatable archway, all of the tents, the vendors, the sponsor, Jen is actually the one that's responsible for that. So on this right here, you're going to be coming from the lower right side of the slide. You may or may not see my boat, which is pictured there, the safety boat location. I'm going to be bouncing around, actually possibly meeting some of the boats offshore, but for the most part, we'll be in the general area. If you are a captain and you are wanting to anchor up after your paddlers have already gone in, as you can see down to the south of where I'm at, we want to make sure that you anchor south of the safety boat or committee boat in that general area, mostly because the beach area that we were landing, they block that off for us specifically. They do control that. You don't want to be too close to the pier. You don't want to be too close to the beach. We really just want to make sure that we abide by and give as much grace as we possibly can to Lake Worth Ocean Rescue and also Lake Worth Pier and Beach where we're going to be landing at. So you want to make sure that you are anchoring as far south as you can, south of the yellow buoys and where my boat would typically be. So any of the paddlers that are coming in, you're going to be coming from the lower right side of the slide right now. You must go through the yellow buoys. Do not cut the corner inside the buoys, particularly if you are a competitive paddler. You must go through the buoys to qualify for the competitive category. You're going to parallel the actual pier itself until you reach the finish line and through the archway.
Hey, Paul, can I jump in real quick on one thing?
Absolutely.
We didn't have it on the last slide, but it is an important note to make for all the teams and paddlers and crew. You will be issued a bib number. We've never had bib numbers in the past. You will have a waterproof 4x7 bib number, and you'll be given clothespins to put that on. You can put that on when you leave the beach in Bimini. You can put it on anytime before you get to the beach landing, but it will be encouraged and mandatory for you to wear that when you paddle in. And the reason is because it's number one for safety, number two for identification. So, ideally we're going to be identifying paddlers well and long before they get to the pier from the communications with the boat. However, if for some reason that communication doesn't happen, that bib number is the last resort for identifying you. There will be spotter scopes on the pier and at the beach landing. If you want your name called when you cross the finish line, it's really important that you have that bib number on. Once you're on the beach, there's going to be 1,000 people on the beach. There's going to be other paddlers on the beach. It can very easily, you can get lost in the crowd. Having the bib number on helps us identify you in case there's an emergency and we need to get you in an ambulance, or if we're trying to identify you because the live stream team wants to interview you once you cross the finish line, need to have that bib number on. So you can put it on a mile offshore at your last break, clip it on your shirt, clip it on your shorts, whatever you need to do, put the bib number on so you come in. It'll only take a few seconds. You can have a crewmate put it on while they're on the boat and you can come cruising in.
Awesome. Thanks, Travis. Really appreciate that. Yeah, the live stream aspect of this, it's the first time that we've ever done it. Very, very, very exciting aspect of this. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, because the final stage of the landing itself is actually a live stream interview that we're going to do of each of the paddlers crossing the finish line. And this is a huge event. We want you to be part of the celebration. So as we go into the next part of this, Lake Worth Beach finish, the finish line is going to be an inflated archway on the beach. The staff is going to be present to secure your paddleboard. So if you're a paddler and you're arriving at the beach, we're going to grab your paddleboard for you and move that to a board storage area. Competitive paddlers are considered finished once they passed under the archway with paddle in hand, just like any other competitive paddling event. You ditch your board, leave it there, grab your paddle, run up the beach if applicable. Obviously, we've got a couple prone paddlers this year, Holly and Megan. You're not going to have a paddle. No outside interference or assistance may be given to the competitive paddlers until they finish the line. We had a couple paddlers last year that were barely making it in the beach. They were absolutely spent. People went out to the water to meet them, to grab their board and help them get to the beach. You cannot touch or help or assist a competitive paddler or they're disqualified. So let them try to finish the event. Relay teams, it's encouraged that all members cross the line at once. However, only the RFID timed member is required for the team finish time. So make sure that if you're waiting for people and you're in the competitive category, go ahead and send that person with the RFID in. Everyone else can jump on the boards, paddle to the shoreline. They can run back and meet you, and then you can cross the finish line together. This is really all about, if you are one of the relay teams, this is all about that team finish and being part of that complete celebration. So just make sure you get your time stopped. So whoever has the RFID, get across the finish line, get your time stopped, and then work your way back. Jen Napolitano is the Duchess. She's run our beach landing for the last several years. I'm going to go ahead and default to her because these are some things that she wanted to address today. Jen, are you on? Wait, hold on. I may need to find Jen. I'm sorry. I may need to find you and unmute you. So hang on. Apologies, guys. My fault completely.
She is right there.
What's that?
Hey everybody, my name is Jennifer. Thanks Paul for the kind introduction. I am the director of the beach landing. I'm going to try to be as quick and brief and concise as possible. If you do have questions, my contact is jennifer@pipersangels.org, but I would default to Josh Ferris because he's going to be with me on the beach, your point of contact, and he knows everything. He'll be doing all the safety, and we have an infrastructure designed, implemented on the beach. So Josh is really the person that is going to be there that will be able to answer your questions. To piggyback off of what has already been said, I want to just say in advance, myself, Ocean Rescue, a Lake Worth Beach Ocean Rescue, we've done this a lot of years, and plenty of their team have not only been lifeguards on the beach, but also participated in the event as paddleboard, as competitors. So they have a very comprehensive idea and knowledge. Some feedback from previous years is paddlers are not expecting or prepared for the show that they arrive to. They're already going through a lot emotionally, and the climax, it's very overwhelming for them. So they have a tendency to get very nervous. So a lot of things that captains can do, especially to help them prepare, is like Paul was just saying, or Travis just said, put the bib on in advance, like help them prepare, because they're about to come into a very big party, a very big celebration, a lot of attention. And that also is something I want to touch on when you dismount your board. Because of the attention, I've seen people get injured here, and be conscious, and always default to ocean rescue. And another thing that Paul was just saying, yes, people getting in the shoreline, we're going to do our best to firm up those boundaries. It's a requirement by the city. We want them to welcome us back each year. So we are going to have firm lines, but it's also really helpful if you let your family and friends know in advance to meet you at the archway or the podium. Don't go to the shore. They are as invested and prepared and anxious and as a paddler. So they are doing mom, wife, husband, child protective measures that aren't exactly helpful in the moment. So celebrate at the archway, complete to the archway. We have it all teed up. A big feedback from paddlers of past events has been not really enjoying how we have to get the event to progress, because they're emotional, they're exhausted. We know all this. We're extremely cognizant of it. We are as gentle as possible, but we do have to be moving it along, not to rush, but people are coming in succession, usually within the same window. If we can allow people to be as emotional and celebrate as long as possible, we will. And if they're not complete, we will have to move to the side so the next person completing can get their moment on the podium and keep it going, because everybody gets that moment, and some are, take longer than others. After that, after the completion, so it's the shore, let the board go. Captains, help your paddlers prepare. Make sure that they have a waterproof, their passport, license, keys, and cell phone. Everything else can be coordinated and retrieved later. There will be jet skis to help spotters from the boat complete the event and come off. We also ask that you bring as little as possible, just the bare necessities. You can coordinate to get your belongings later. You're just opening it up to more work for yourself, the team on the beach, and theft, things of that nature, damage. This is just about the completion. In my opinion, the spotters are just as much invested in the event, and they get to complete and go through the archway and the podium and get their moment as well. So we have those jet skis there, and the jet skis are also there for safety, but they can't be lugging luggage. It's just not feasible, and that's an experienced decision that the team makes. In the event of an emergency, Palm Beach County Fire Rescue is going to be there providing medical, and they're just going to make all decisions as it pertains. They're professionals. This is what they do, and they're communicating directly with Josh Ferris and making sure like the plan is comprehensive, ironed out, and thorough. So a couple things I noticed that weren't touched on for the boats and the captains, where you can anchor south of Paul. You can anchor there as long as weather permitting. You can stay there and participate. The pier and the beach and the boats are not as far as it looks from these maps that were created. So the boats anchor, hang out as long as you can, as long as the water permits it. The bib point, keep the bib on as long as you can, because even though you know who you are, we know we don't. So it helps us make sure that after the podium completion that you make it onto the live stream. It's a really important feature of this year that's been different than others, is after you complete the podium celebration, we are going to guide you right to get that interview. And it might feel, we want to capture you in your emotional moment and your completion and your achievement. So it's teed up that way, it's designed that way, and you're going to be really glad to get that footage. So everything is timed. Josh, you mentioned about the buoys. They're about 4 feet high, maybe 5 feet high. They are very significant when you get close, but just like everything else, it's hard to see from a distance. That's a lot of feedback I've gotten in previous years. We need to identify the pier better. I haven't come up with a solution to that other than follow the coordinates yet. But the buoys, when they get close enough, they are distinguishable. You won't miss them.
Jen, can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, very important for all the paddlers to realize, and this comes into question each year, the finish line, the archway, and the podiums and the bell, that whole experience is not just for people who go beach to beach. It's not just for competitors. It's not for winners. Those podiums are for courageous people who have committed to doing this event, have signed up and are out there. I don't care if you paddle 1 mile, 50 miles, or 80 miles. It is absolutely your place to cross that finish line, receive the medal, hit the bell, celebrate on those podiums with your friends and your family, get your pictures, because the win for this is not about the paddle. The win is what we accomplished together for the mission and the community. So it doesn't matter what you do. If you get seasick out there, you should cross that finish line. No matter what happens, you should cross that finish line and celebrate because you deserve it.
I completely agree, and he's spot on. And we do everything in designing this to consider that as well. Like I said, spotters are just as important as the person who gets first place in the competitive division. You stayed up all night, you made sure that safety was complete, you looked out for your captains, you get to come in. So we want you to come in, we want you to podium, we want your family there. We also want to be welcome back each year and make sure it's safe as possible. So that's why it's so I get to be redundant about certain things. So the biggest thing I want to emphasize, if I can leave you on one last thing, is we have not crossed the ocean. We did not train for 6 months. We have a lot of thought and consideration and teamwork to get it there, but just know we want to keep you in your moment as long as possible, but we do have to make sure that safety and cohesion is happening. Whatever we can help with, we will. And we have everybody there. You can volunteers are clearly identifiable. Palm Beach Fire Rescue is clearly identifiable. And another thing I just remembered is a lot of people that have an injury or experience some exhaustion, they don't typically experience it until after their adrenaline and their finish is complete. So the biggest thing that was recommended by Palm Beach Fire Rescue and Lake Worth Ocean Rescue is chill on the beach as long as possible. You might feel okay. 15 minutes later, I was talking about this earlier with Paul, most injuries in my experience happen on the sidewalk, because you think you're okay and all of the adrenaline kind of calms down and it's very hot, you're tired, you're thirsty. We were prepared for all that, but it's so much better if it's on the sand opposed to hard concrete. And as much as you can warn your friends and family on these procedures to be at the podium, it takes a lot of work off of us so we can prepare for you and make it as special as possible. So relay this information, tell them to be at the archway. Don't come to the shore. If you can, we'll be controlling that as well. I just want to look at my notes real quick to make sure I didn't miss anything. All the fun stuff I don't need to go over, because that's the fun stuff that gets to remain a mystery and a celebration. Yeah, I think I touched on most.
Hey, Jen, we gotta wrap, move forward. So if there's
I'm
anything
good.
else, yeah, just give it to me and we'll send it out.
I'm complete. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. Thank you so much for your input. Scott.
You want me back on this one? Um, Okay, everyone, not a pop quiz. Thanks for your participation. Thanks for spending the last 2 hours with us. Hopefully you got good information. You see on the screen here, please send an email. In fact, you have to send an email so that we know that you've watched this either now live or you watched it in its recorded version. Send an email with your full name in the subject line to boats@pipersangels.org. And then we'll know that you attended. You're welcome to put some questions in that email as well as it pertains to this safety presentation. And we will try to answer those to not only yourself, but to the rest of the group if it warrants. If you have specific questions for specific areas, what if you want to direct a question to Josh or Paul or Jennifer or Tony or some of the other specific areas of the team, please direct those directly to those, and don't put it in here so that we don't want those to get lost. Well, I have over 100 of you present here. I know everybody's got all kinds of questions in regards to lodging and how all that's coming through. We just worked our way through with the owners of Big Game and the Cove, all of the assignments, the confirmation numbers, and everybody should hear from our event and or from folks over there tomorrow, so that you know the specifics on that. What I sent out previously hasn't changed much, but you'll have directions on how to contact them and to set those reservations directly for not only your units but your slips. Any questions you have in regards to those that aspect, direct those to me, which is scott.d@pipersangels.org. And obviously that email's been out there several times. Again, thank you. This was longer than we intended. I apologize for that. Thank you for spending the last 2 hours with us. Look forward to a very successful event, not only on our way over while we're in Bimini, and then certainly what Jennifer just spoke to on at the beach landing and those events afterwards. It's been a joy to be around everybody so far, and we are all, on behalf of the entire team, looking forward to a very successful and fun crossing this year. So thanks everybody. Paul, we are all set.